Jana Valabha Givaradhari Jana Valabha Givaradhari Jana Valabha Givaradhari Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiro Banachari Yamuna Tiro Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Govinda Madhava Govinda Madhava Radhe Govinda Madhava Govinda Madhava Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrijakacharya Stotra Sutta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivinoda Goswami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada ISKCON BVT Founder Acharya Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrijakacharya Stotra Sutta Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shvira Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kau Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mathura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, La Nouvelle Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Mati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru, Shri Guranga, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padayo Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Devi Shishashunna Vani Pashatari Shatari. Hare Krishna. So we're going to read today from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and the title of this chapter we are reading is Swami Invites the Hippies. So Swami invites the hippies. Everybody speaks English? Do we need that? I guess. After Swamiji's arrival, Joan had begun attending the temple kirtans. She felt drawn to Swamiji and the chanting, and she especially liked the informal visiting hours. Swamiji would sit in his rocking chair with his hand in his bead bag, chanting the holy name, and Joan would sit fascinated, watching his fingers moving within the bag. So this is something interesting. With Guru, you have the official dealings when he gives the class, when he gives the lecture. And there is in between this informal visiting hours. Guru is not showing just a very nice standard when he's giving class and then has a life that is separate. He's always, Guru is always acting in a perfect way that we can get inspired. When Srila Prabhupada came to New Mayapur, it was like something like almost 50 years ago. You come today to New Mayapur, there's nice roads, everything is really nice. 50 years ago, there was a lot of mud all the way around. When we would walk, if we were driving, there would be some ruts. So in 10 years' time, you have probably 3 hours of rain, maybe 3 hours of drought, and 3 hours of normal time. So at that time, Prabhupada was in England, and it has been raining all over the place. There were a lot of mud. So Srila Prabhupada spent a lot of time outside the castle, giving classes, walks. And actually, there's a castle today here, But what about 1,000 years from now? 5,000 years from now? What is important is not the building in itself, it is the consciousness. So eventually Prabhupada had this walk, and Mataji Aradhya, she was in charge of Prabhupada's shoes, taking care of his shoes. I have another story with shoes I can tell you after that. But anyway, this story is Prabhupada, this walk, he went down through the garden there, and we had to run to try to be close to Prabhupada. Prabhupada would walk very fast. He was not a slow walker. So we had to keep track, and we had to jump here and there not to be too much in the puddles, in the water puddles. And we would get splashed and mud on a dhoti, on our shoes. When Prabhupada came back, Mataji Aradhya, she took Prabhupada's shoes. They were spotless. There was no mud. Not a drop of mud. So I don't have much comment to do about this. Just a short story about a devotee. He was watching Prabhupada walking, and this happened at the manor, at the estate of John Lennon. And this devotee was looking at Prabhupada walking, and there was a bug on the grass, and Prabhupada was going to walk and step on that bug. He actually put his shoes over the bug, but immediately the grass went back up and the bug was untouched. So with material eyes, we see a material body. But a spiritual soul like Narada Muni, like Srila Prabhupada, although he walks, actually he doesn't walk on the earth. And his feet are always clean. So I'll tell you, I was going to tell you another story with shoes. This devotee, he's in America. He's a German devotee. He lives in America. Padmagarbha. He wanted to have Prabhupada's shoes. So he looked for some time to buy the same pair of shoes. And he exchanged the shoes. They were exactly the same. And he put them, and he kept Prabhupada's shoes. So he told me that story. So eventually, Prabhupada put the shoes. He walked a little bit for some time, and then he gave the class. And in the class he said, and you should not steal your spiritual master's shoes. He had exchanged the shoes. And Prabhupada realized that. They were exactly the same, but they were not his shoes. And said, you should not steal the shoes from your spiritual master. He was not upset, but you cannot cheat the spiritual master. Spiritual master is actually, we cannot see Krishna, but spiritual master is an expansion of the spirit soul within the body, is Krishna within the body, so we can know what to do. We're not advanced enough to speak with Krishna within our heart. So Krishna dictates to him whatever he needs to know. And in this particular case, and you should not stay in front of the whole class, and don't steal the shoes of your spiritual master. Another story about Prabhupada was in the heart. I was in Paris and doing Sankirtan, and Prabhupada was going to come from England. Eventually we painted the room. This building was a special building. Nobody wanted to get this building, because it had a history. During the previous war or something, there's a man, Dr. Petiot. Dr. Petiot, he had burnt several wives in his oven, something like 7 wives or something. And so we could get the building very cheap, and by Krishna's mercy we can purify everything. We actually destroyed the building, but with showers, because it was not a big building in a very nice neighborhood, close to Arch of Triumph. It was kind of small. We had difficulties parking and everything, But so anyway, to make the story short, the temple was in the ground floor. You would have an entrance. There was a basement. Then there was a door, and you would enter in the temple room. You know this picture you see with Prabhupada with a very nice round Vyasasan? You see this picture often. And it is from this Paris temple. And the Vyasasan is in the basement somewhere. We should restore that and try to find the same cloth. It's a very historic picture with Prabhupada showing Bhagavad Gita.
It's restored, we use it now.
Oh, you? Okay, excellent.
We use it for festivals.
Okay. But I think we should put it somewhere in the building. One day this building, we might have a big temple and this might become a museum or something, and it could be very nice things with different artifacts from Prabhupada, and make a library or something. Eventually the temple will grow. You know, it's hundreds of families. And so anyway, there were two doors to enter into this room. There was the main door, and then on the right side were the Vyasasan, left side were the deities. First deities that were installed were the Jagannath, Subala and Balada, a devotee called Lilamrita, carved them, Dutch devotee, or French devotee who lived in Holland or something, Lilamrita, and eventually Radha Parasishwar. Now, if you use your logic, different countries have a different mood. And French mood is philosophy and speculation. We like to speculate in France. Americans like to do business. The French like to speculate. So, first deities with Jagannath. It's completely beyond logic. Jagannath. Deities. God. Jagannath. But Prabhupada is so transcendental, just like he installed Krishna Balaram, the only Krishna Balaram deities all over the world, except for Vrindavan. It's not by chance. It's not, oh, I'm going to put it. No. There's a reason. Krishna Balaram means the land and the cows. This is the purpose of this place here. So, so Prabhupada installs the deities. So they were on the side, there were some curtains, but just before the curtain there was a small door. So Prabhupada was on the Vyasasan, devotees were inside. I was close to the deities' curtains, watching the class, and I was a Sankirtan devotee, and I was not spending much time in, I think it was in 74 or something. So I was not spending much time in the temple, and Prabhupada was giving a lecture, he was looking at everybody. You like when your spiritual look at you. When you meet somebody, you like to have some connection with the eyes, right? If you meet someone and say, oh, hello, how are you? No, you like to look at the person. And Prabhupada was not looking at me. And he was giving class and watching me. He was not looking at me. So Prabhupada was sick at that time. And Bhagavan went to England to bring him. We were not sure whether he would come. So finally he came. So now he gave the lecture. When the class was over, I came out to be first when Prabhupada would come out. So normally, when Prabhupada would end up the class, he would go to the deities, pay his obeisances to the deities. There would be a row of sannyasis protecting devotees, Prabhupada for not being pushed or by devotees. So I had plenty of time, so I came out. But as soon as I came out, the door opened. I guess Prabhupada was sick and he decided to quickly go to his room. He didn't go, I guess, to the deed. As soon as the door opened, I said, Prabhupada. So I paid my obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Buddha. It was a very good French accent. Srimate Bhakti, I was a new devotee. And then Namaste. And then when I finished my obeisances, I see 2 feet right in front of me. And I go up. And Prabhupada looked at me. He nailed me down to the ground with his eyes. All the devotees were blocked in the back. He was sick. He left, he stopped the class because he was sick. He didn't go to the deities, he must have been really sick. But he waited 1 minute for me to finish my obeisances and nailed me down like, and made a big smile, and then went up. Jai Shri Prabhupada. So anyway, there's the personal history, but also the idea is Krishna is within our heart, and the spiritual master knows what you want. And he knows he wanted me, I wanted him to look at me. And he did look at me. I can still now, I can still remember this. One day Swamiji's visiting hours, during Swamiji's visiting hours, while Swamiji was sitting in his rocking chair and John and others were sitting at his feet, Janaki's cat crept in through the hallway door and began slowly coming down the hallway. The cat came closer and closer and slowly landed right in front of Swamiji's feet. It sat down, looking up intensely at Swamiji, and began to meow. None of the devotees knew what to expect. Swamiji began gently stroking the back of the cat with his foot, saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, are you feeding him Prasadam milk? John, I was touched by Swamiji's activities and his kindness, even to cats. And I longed for more association with him. So it's not that this is the problem with this civilization now. They're trying to help people, but they have no mercy for the cows. They have no mercy for ants. They have no mercy for mosquitoes. They spray everything. The people will say, thank you very much to this internet company. They gave me 2 weeks free internet. But they don't say thank you to the tree. They give you free oxygen. And you cannot live with oxygen. But they don't say thank you, just cut the tree. Thank you for this, Mr. Internet. 2 weeks for internet, I can go. But no thank you to the trees. Only Krishna consciousness is merciful to even an ant. We're not even going to kill an ant. We try not to keep ants. Because, as Prabhupada said, you have one ant somewhere, somehow or other they're going to find. A grain of sugar you put on top of a skyscraper, they're going to find. If you leave some food. I'm not sure if it's Prabhupada who told that story about, I think Prabhupada told that story about, maybe it was Alexander the Great. He was going east, conquering the countries, and one king welcomed him and his army and gave him a building where he could sleep. And at night, there were some ants coming through a hole in the ground. Immediately, he took all this, so let's go. They burned the place and they left. Ant means food. If there were so many ants, there were some soldiers in the basement under the ground that would kill them during the night. This is where there were some ants, there was some food, they were feeding the soldiers, and during the night they would come and kill them. So he burned the whole place and left. So anyway, we should keep the place clean, because ants will come, and then when we sweep them, we kill them by mistake. So by keeping the house clean, we save some ants' lives. We don't want to attract flies and mosquitoes, and by being not very cautious about things. Mosquitoes will come if we leave the lights on and we keep the window open. We can have screens, we can organize that, so we don't need to kill animals. So we should be very, we don't want the cat to live in a house, but still we should feed the cat. If there's some cat, if some animals, some birds, whatever, we feed them. We're not just taking care of devotees. John came to understand that serving Swamiji was a serious matter. But she did not want to jump into initiation until she was 100% sure about it. Sometimes she would cry in ecstasy, and sometimes she would fall asleep during Swamiji's lecture. So she remained hesitant and skeptical, wondering, how can I actually apply Swamiji's teaching to my life? One evening, Swamiji asked her, when are you going to be initiated? Joan said that she did not know, but she realized reading his books and chanting Hare Krishna. She relished reading his books and chanting Hare Krishna. She said that because she was attracted to the mountains and to elevated spiritual consciousness, she wanted to travel to Tibet. Swamiji, sitting in his rocking chair, looked down at Joan as she sat at his feet. She felt he was looking right through her. I can take you to a higher place than Tibet, he said. Just see. This is interesting that she said that she felt he was looking right through her. This is the feeling I had. I couldn't express it before, but this is just when Prabhupada looked at you, because you can see he was looking through you. So, I can take you to a higher place than Tibet. So this is Guru. Guru is not somebody you take so that you can satisfy your material desires. And maybe traveling to Tibet might seem something a little more subtle than going to downtown to see the Eiffel Tower or something. But still, it's when Srila Prabhupada came to Orly, Orly is the Paris, as France has in Paris, there's two airports, Charles de Gaulle in the north and Orly in the south. Orly was at that time very busy. And devotees came from England, devotees came from Belgium, some came from Holland, came from Germany and from France, and to greet Prabhupada. The temple was in that place, I told you before, and all the devotees came. We didn't have that many cars, but there were some cars, especially foreign cars from Germany and Belgium and Holland, and some not always really nice, beautiful cars. We had some cars sometimes were wrecked and everything, and when we all arrived to Orly, we didn't want to miss Prabhupada. Devotees would leave the car anywhere and go inside. And the law was coming, but another one was arriving, another one. There were hundreds of cars everywhere. We're making a big mess. And security was completely puzzled. They didn't know what to do because devotees didn't care about the police. They cared about Prabhupada coming. There was a big mess, cars parked everywhere, and devotees were coming inside and starting a kirtan. But Prabhupada was blocked inside because of some legal things with a passport, I'm not sure, they were screwed. So it took a long time, so all this time there was security who didn't know what to do, they were coming in, but devotees didn't care for them. So eventually, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Hare Bol, Janaki, this is Janaki and this is Rohini. Janaki was born on Lord Ramachandra's appearance day, and this is Rohini, Hare Bol. So eventually, Prabhupada came out, and Jai Prabhupada, Hare Bol, and Srila Prabhupada gave a darshan in the airport. So we all sat down. In the meanwhile, there was all these security people coming, and we did not care. So Prabhupada started a kirtan, and everyone just started to give a class, and an Indian gentleman came, and he asked Prabhupada to touch his feet. He asked, Swamiji, I want your benediction. So what benediction. So I have problem with my back. So Prabhupada he showed some sannyasis, this saffron color, this is my benediction. No, I don't want this benediction. No, I have problem with my back. And no, this is my benediction. No, I don't want that. I want this benediction. So the idea is that Guru is not there to satisfy your back pain or your headache or something. Anxieties is there to relieve you from anxieties, but by giving spiritual transcendental knowledge. And here, Srila Prabhupada didn't come to give benediction so she could travel to a nice trip to Tibet and ever say, hey, I can take you to a higher place than Tibet. This is the idea. We approach Guru for spiritual benediction. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. Joan suddenly felt that Swamiji knew everything about her. And she understood, oh, I have to see through his eyes what Krishna consciousness is. He was promising that he would take her to some very elevated realm, but she would have to see it. It was then that Joan decided to become Swamiji's disciple. When she told her boyfriend, Roger, he was astounded. He and Joan had been coming to the kirtan and lectures together, but she still had doubts. Maybe it would be good for him and Joan to get married, but not initiated. Joan, however, was more determined. She explained to Roger that Swamiji hadn't come just to perform marriages. You had to get initiated first. Roger Seagull had grown up in New York. He was following a Hatha Yoga guru, had experimented with psychedelic chemicals, and had traveled in the deep south as a civil rights activist, taking part in freedom marches with the blacks, large bodies, sociable and outgoing. He had lots of friends in San Francisco. At the airport, in a merry mood with the Haight-Ashbury crowd, he had seen Swamiji for the first time and had been struck by Swamiji's regal bearing and absence of self-consciousness. The concept of reincarnation had always intrigued him, but after attending some of Swamiji's lectures and hearing him explain transmigration of the soul, he felt he had found someone who definitely knew the answer to any question about life after death. One night, after attending the program at the temple, Roger returned to his apartment and sat down in the fire escape to meditate on what Swamiji had said. The world is false, he had said, but it feels real to me, Roger thought. If I pinch my arm, I feel pain. So how is that illusion? This fire escape is real, otherwise I would be falling in space. This space is real, isn't it? Roger decided he didn't understand that what Swamiji meant by illusion. If I tried to walk through the wall, he thought, would that be real or not? Maybe the world's reality is just in my mind. To test the illusion, he went inside the apartment, concentrated his mind, and walked against the wall. Smack! He sat down again and thought, what does Swamiji mean when he said that the world is illusion? He decided he should ask at the next meeting. So this is interesting. He didn't say, oh, Prabhupada was wrong. He said, okay, this I don't understand. So he decided to ask that question, and he did. And Srila Prabhupada told him that exactly the world is real because it was created by God, the supreme reality, but it is unreal in the sense that everything material is temporary. When a person takes the temporary world to be permanent, and all in all, he is an illusion. Only the spiritual world, Swamiji explained, is eternal and therefore real. Roger was satisfied by Swamiji's answer, but he had other difficulties. He thought Swamiji too conservative. When Swamiji said that people's dogs must be kept outside the temple, Roger didn't like it. Like people, they really love dogs. They like to sleep with the dog and eat with the dog. I know somebody, he eats and then feed the dog and eats and feed the dog with a spoon, and you think it's really nice. So he thought Swamiji was too conservative. When Swamiji said that people's dogs must be kept outside the temple, Roger didn't like it. Many visitors brought pet dogs with them to the temple, and now there was a hitching post in front of the building just to accommodate the pets on leashes. So this is intelligent. Oh, people have dogs, okay, we don't say don't make dogs, but we make some arrangements. Get some posts so people can arrange it.
Ça veut dire quoi, leashes?
Une laisse.
Ah,
Voilà. L'idée, c'est que on ne doit pas refuser si quelqu'un vient. On fait ce qu'on peut pour accommoder. Et si quelqu'un vient avec un chien, on dit on ramène pas un chien, c'est Maya, c'est dégueulasse, il est caca par terre. Non, on fait un arrangement. Voilà, un arrangement pour les chiens. There's a place for dogs, there's a place for people, there's a place for the cows, there's a place for everything. It's funny. So Swamiji wouldn't allow any pets inside. This philosophy is for humans, he said. A cat or dog cannot understand it. Although if he hears the chanting of Hare Krishna, he can receive a higher birth in the future. But we don't make a place with dogs just sitting and make a kitten for the dog. They will not behave, probably they can't understand. They will benefit, you give them prasad, they can hear, but you don't, this is not a place for dogs. Dogs have a place, cows have a place. Roger also had other points of contention with what he considered Swamiji's conservative philosophy. Swamiji repeatedly spoke against uncontrolled habits, like smoking. But Roger could not imagine giving up such things. And the instructions about restricting sex life especially bothered him. Yet despite his not following very strictly, Roger felt himself developing a love for Swamiji and Krishna. He sensed that Swamiji had much to teach him, and that Swamiji was doing it in a certain way and a certain order. Roger knew that Swamiji saw him as a baby in spiritual life who had to be spoon-fed. He knew he had to become submissive and accept whatever Swamiji gave him. So in our preaching, we should also be like Prabhupada. We should not be fanatical, think that people are ready to accept everything 100%. In photography, there's an expression, it's called fondu enchaîné. You know what is fondu enchaîné in photography or in filmings, in a film? Okay, in a film you see a picture, and this picture fades away gradually. And then another one comes from very slow and eventually becomes the new picture. It's called fondu enchaîné. So this is our philosophy, is like fondu enchaîné. It's not like, puff, we become the and no, gradually we give up bad habits and gradually good habits take place, like this. And here Srila Prabhupada was very tolerant. He accepted people as devotees who were very degraded. They were doing crazy things in some situation. One story in Africa, Prabhupada in the morning could not find, when Srila Prabhupada, he could not find his clothes in the morning, and he saw one devotee, he took his clothes. He was in the temple, he put Prabhupada's clothes. You put them on the line, you wash your clothes, put them on the line to dry. But there's different continents because of different karma. And in Africa, you steal and you get stolen. So you put something and people say, oh, this is mine, this is really nice, and he puts it on. And Prabhupada in the morning couldn't get his clothes. Somebody took his clothes. So to see how tolerant Prabhupada was. And by these stories, we can expect something same happening to us. Okay. So here we see that Prabhupada was feeling he was feeding him with a spoon. And this is the same, these temples, especially on Sankirtan, if you're not very strict with your chanting, you cannot approach the people. It's too difficult after some time. You don't want to see these people anymore. So you have to be very serious in Sankirtan. Every day you really need to change around, listen to Prabhupada, and then the city is very foggy. Even if it's sunny, still people's mind is foggy and it's hard to, and then eventually you get into it and you get inspired. But in a farm, you can lose the sense of emergency and be that serious. You can be a little lenient in chanting around a little bit, Hare Krishna, look at the birds, and like this. It's very easy. So we have to be very disciplined to keep this discipline so we can advance quicker. In a farm community, it's easier to get distracted, especially because we accept many people from the outside and we try to engage them and they get purified, but we should get Krishna's association, not this travelers association. We're here to give them Krishna, not to get there. They might give good ideas, because materialists, some people are much more advanced than us in many fields of activities. But we have to be careful not to dilute our spiritual program so we can become strong and inspire them. They should become like us. We should not become like them in their material habits. They should develop this inspiration. Oh, I would like to be like that. How long is the class? It's 9:15 almost. We can go on? Maybe some people are hungry and they don't want to hear some stomach shouting, screaming, I'm hungry. We can go on reading a little bit? Voilà, I was late and I apologize for that. I was asked to give the class. So we can go on.
Yeah, she said 15.
Oh, okay, Hare Krishna, sit down. Va t'asseoir à côté de Dakshina, s'il te plaît. Va t'asseoir. Sam Spearstra, tall and slender with curly reddish gold hair, was athletic. He had trained as an Olympic skier, yet artistic. He was a writer and wood sculptor. This is what I was saying. Many people come, they had some talent. He had graduated from Reed College in Oregon and gone on as a Fulbright scholar to a small college in Switzerland, where he had obtained an MA in philosophy. He was popular, as Mukunda saw him, the epitome of the rugged individualist. When Mukunda had visited Sam at his mountain lookout tower and told him about Swamiji and Krishna consciousness, Sam had been intrigued by his new ideas. Sam's life had nearly reached a dead end But he had seen hope in what Mukunda and Janaki had been saying about Swamiji. Her name is Janaki also, you see? Sit down properly, assis-toi bien. Sam was the one who knew the local rock stars and had persuaded them to appear at the Avalon with Swami Bhaktivedanta, whom he had never met. Sam had seen Swamiji for the first time when Swamiji had arrived at the San Francisco airport, and Sam had later insisted that he had seen a flash of light come from Swamiji's body. There was a devotee like this. He said, I don't know if you know that anecdote. Said, when I chant Hare Krishna, I see some lights and everything. And Prabhupada said, yeah, go on chanting and it's going to disappear. He thought he was very advanced because he could see some lights. Yeah, keep on chanting and then it's going to come out. It's going to disappear. So he said he had seen a flash of light come from Swamiji's body. At first, Sam had been afraid to say anything, nor had he known what to say. Prabhupada was completely new to him and seemed so elevated. But the day after the program at the Avalon, when Mukunda told Prabhupada that Sam had arranged the dance, Prabhupada sent for him to find out how much money they had made. Sitting across from Prabhupada, who sat behind his small desk, Sam informed him that they had made about $1,500 profit. Well, then Prabhupada said, you will be the treasurer. Then Srila Prabhupada asked him, what is your idea of God? God is one. Sam replied. Prabhupada asked, what is the purpose of worshipping God? Sam replied, to become one with God. No! Prabhupada said, you cannot become one with God. Prabhupada would become very upset with this. In our prayers, we pray Nirvishesha Sunyavadis. We should always never make any compromise. We don't want to become one with God, and God is not a void, like the Buddha says. This is, we fight, and Prabhupada, no, you cannot become one with God. God and you are always two different individuals. But you can become one in interest with God. And then he told Sam about Krishna. After they talked, Prabhupada said, you can come up every day and I will teach you to do books. So Sam began meeting with Prabhupada for half an hour a day to learn bookkeeping. Sam is speaking. I had never been very good at keeping books, and I really did not want to do it. But it was a good excuse to come and see Swamiji every day. He would chew me out when I would spend too much money or when I wouldn't balance the books properly. I really loved the idea that he was so practical that he knew bookkeeping. He became so much more of a friend from the beginning rather than some ideal person from another sphere of life. I took almost all my practical questions to him. I learned to answer things for myself based on the way Swamiji always answered day-to-day problems. And the first thing he made me do was to get married to my girlfriend. So sometime Prabhupada, he would initiate some people and make them sannyasi. The next day, he would make some people married. So, again, Prabhupada was in the heart. He knows what is best for everybody. And the spiritual master, is the external manifestation of Krishna within the heart, and he knows what is best for us. And Guru manifests himself through different situations when we don't know what to do. Then eventually Krishna will arrange through Guru. Mukunda and his wife Janaki, whose apartment was just down the hall from Srila Prabhupada's, were the only couple Srila Prabhupada had already initiated and married. Mukunda, who often wore his strand of large red japa beads in two loose loops around his neck, and grown long hair and a short, thin black beard since coming to San Francisco. He had entered the summer of love spirit of Haight-Ashbury and was acquainted with many of the popular figures. Although occasionally earning money as a musician, he spent most of his time promoting Prabhupada's mission, especially by meeting people to arrange gala programs like the one at the Avalon. He was a leader in bringing people to assist Prabhupada, and yet he had no permanent sense of commitment. He was helping because it was fun. Having little desire to be different from his many San Francisco friends, he did not strictly follow Srila Prabhupada's principle for a regulated spiritual life. So it was a very special time in the 60s. Very, very special times. People were open to new ideas, but people could do whatever they wanted. And it was nice because it was different from what the standard life was there before. This devotee friend of mine in America, one time he was with Bob Dylan. Do you know Bob Dylan? He's a famous singer. He was with him, and they decided to go from San Francisco to Denver, Colorado. And so they drove together and arrived in Denver. And Bob Dylan said, "Oh, let's go out and distribute some of Prabhupada's books." And they came out and distributed to people some books. It was Bob Dylan. So the idea is, if we're not fanatical, we can engage a lot of people to do something for Krishna. Eventually, they will do something for 1 minute, for 1 hour, for 1 day, for 1 week, for 1 month, for 1 year, for one's life. But whatever is done is stored in the bank. Like Prabhupada said, you put 1 cent daily in a box. One day it becomes 100, and you become devotee. So this is the idea. Some people become devotee in this life, some people in next life, some people in many lives, but whatever is done spiritually is never lost. But in a cemetery, you don't see any rich dead. Whatever wealth we have accumulated during our life, whatever money, whatever buildings, land, whatever, is lost when we leave our body. But whatever is done spiritually, then we manifest at a certain time, next life, or like you see children, naturally, you give them kartal and they start playing, and they never learn how to play kartal, but they dance in front of the deities because of some pious deed they did in their previous lives. So we're not in control of, because not because we meet somebody that is going to become, I've made him a devotee. No, we've been an instrument in Krishna's hand to introduce Krishna to him, and eventually it is his choice to become a devotee. We should do our best so that whoever has come, we should try not to make them leave. Like sometime, I was telling this story yesterday. We had a center in Tours. Tours is a city close to Mayapur, and there was a preaching center there, and the devotees had been painting the building and putting some wallpaper. And there was, I don't know if any of you have already worked with wallpaper. You use a special glue. Yes. It's not regular glue, it's a glue made with cellulose or something. And that day was Ekadasi. On Ekadasi, we serve tapioca. It looks very similar to the glue. This guest came to the preaching center, and this devotee preaching, and he gave him a glass of tapioca, but it was glue. And he insisted, you have to eat, this is prasadam, you have to eat, this is prasadam. Yes, you have to finish it all. The person never came back. So we should not be stupid. But these things happen. And we should try to not make, there was no resins, there was no sugar in the glue. It was just glue. It is not harmful for the body, but still it's not the best prasad. If somebody comes, we try to give him nice prasad. So the person will want to come back. Oh, I had a very nice samosa, I want to come back. I had very nice with rice, a very nice laddu. We should try not to be stupid. And discourage people to come back. So, in his exchanges with Srila Prabhupada, Mukunda liked to assume a posture of fraternal camaraderie rather than one of menial servitude, and Srila Prabhupada reciprocated. Sometimes, however, Prabhupada would assert himself as a teacher. Once, when Prabhupada walked into Mukunda's apartment, he noticed a poster on the wall showing a matador with a cape and a sword going to kill after a bull. This is a horrible picture, Srila Prabhupada exclaimed, his face showing displeasure. Mukunda looked at the poster, realizing for the first time what it meant. Yes, it is horrible, he said, and tore it off the wall. Srila Prabhupada was eager to have someone play the mridanga properly during the kirtans, and Mukunda, a musician, was a likely candidate. Mukunda, this is Mukunda who speaks, the day the drum came, I asked Swamiji if I could learn. And he said yes. I asked him when. He said, when do you want? Now, I asked. Prabhupada said yes. I was a little surprised to get such a quick appointment, but he brought the drum to his room and he began to show me the basic beat. First, there was gi-ta-ta, gi-ta-ta, gi-ta-ta. And then, one slowly, more complicated, gi-ta-ta, gita-gine, gita, gita-gine, gita. You know, this is the way we learn how to play. We know that we learn with mantras. There's ki-to-ta, 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 din. Ki-to-ta, 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 din. Gita, gita-gine, gita, gita-gine, gita, gita-gine. This is the way, this is the system of teaching. So Prabhupada was teaching like this, and in a very gentle way. So what is interesting is Srila Prabhupada is not showing himself as a guru. Sometimes he's as a friend. Like children, from birth until 5, we correct them, but we don't punish them. Because 1 second after, they forgot. Then from 5 until 12, 13, the discipline. We never beat them, but strict discipline. But then when they 12, 13, 14, then we need to be friends with them. Otherwise they go away. But for the benefit, we need to be friends a little bit. They need associating. Otherwise, they'll be cheated by some people who's going to teach them nonsense. So here, Prabhupada, sometimes he would play as guru and sometimes as a friend. And also, gradually, as you grow, then you get inspired by the person, and then you show him respect, because you appreciate his quality like this. But we should not, Prabhupada said, example is better than precept. We inspire people by example, and Prabhupada was so perfect in everything he was doing that we got inspired, and then we respect such a person. And why don't people don't respect the leaders now? Because the leaders don't show much nice, standard, proper life in their private lives. many regulated scandals and everything. And this is what the problem. Prabhupada said, I have not finished my mission, and you have to finish it to establish Varnashram Dharma. And Varnashram Dharma means 4 classes. And there's Shudras, there's Vaishyas, and Kshatriyas, and Brahmins. And naturally, children will imitate their father, and we imitate the leaders. But the leaders know the Sudras. If a Sudra is a thief, he's going to steal the hammer, but if he's prime minister, he can steal a lot more than the hammer. So it's very important that the higher we are in this Varnashram system, the more exemplary we are. And as Brahmins are not there to, oh, I'm a Brahmin. No, Brahmin means some spiritual qualification. This is not just a thread on the body. This is, and Prabhupada, we became inspired by Prabhupada because everything he was doing, even teaching Mridamdas, he was doing it in a gentle way, inspiring him to play. And actually, Prabhupada recalled that his wife was not very happy that his father taught him to play Mridanga when he was a child. But his father was teaching him the basis, and this is our job, is to teach children also how to play kartals, how to worship the deities, in a gentle way that they would accept it. Don't become disgusted by it. So as I began to play the beat, I kept speeding it up. And he kept telling me to slow down. He spent a lot of time just showing me how to strike the heads of the drum. Then I finally began to get it a little, but he had to keep admonishing me to slow down and pronounce the syllables as I hit the drum. Gita-ta, the syllables, he said, and the drum should sound the same. The sound should be the same as the here. Ki and ki, ta, ta, din. The syllables, he said, and the drum should sound the same. I should take it, sound like that, and always pronounce them. I was determined and played very slowly for a long, long time. I was concentrating with great intensity. Then suddenly I was aware of Swamiji standing motionless beside me. I did not know how long he was going to stand there without saying anything, and I became a little uncomfortable. But I continued playing. When I got up, the courage to look up and see his face, to my surprise, he was moving his head back and forth in an affirming way with his eyes closed. He seemed to be enjoying the lesson. This came as a complete surprise to me. Although I had taken music lessons before and had spent many years taking piano lessons, I can never remember an instance when the teacher seemed to actually enjoy my playing. I felt very wonderful to see that here was a teacher who was so perfect, who enjoyed what I was teaching so much, not because it was his personal teaching or his personal method, but because he was witnessing Krishna's energy pass through him to a conditioned soul like myself, and he was getting great pleasure out of it. I had a deeper realization that Swamiji was a real teacher, although I had no idea what a spiritual master really was. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Somebody like to make a small comment? Very interesting reading Prabhupada, his life.
Just a question. When, for example, music players, they are playing music, is it also the same with harmonium? Then is it also a prayer when you are playing a harmonium?
It's always a prayer.
Always a prayer.
It's always a prayer, whether it is with music or without music. Yes. There's instances that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would ask a singer who did not sing very well to lead the kirtan. It's not because we have a beautiful voice that we are sincere within our heart. What is important is singing with the heart. And sometimes in India we have these professional singers. They can do some nice material. It's professional, it's nice, but the singing doesn't touch our heart. Purity is the force. Prabhupada gave 4 tips. Books is the basis. Purity is the force. Utility is the principle, and preaching is the essence. But everything we do is in reference with the books. In everything we do, the base is what is important. If we make a building, like you've been in Italy, there's a tower, Pisa Tower. It is tilted. Why? Because the base was not properly stabilized, and so it started to tilt a little bit. So the base is very important. You make a very elaborate building, but the base is not secured properly, like in Dubai or something. They make these towers, but they drill very, very deep, some steel posts very deep into the ground, so it cannot fall. Same thing if you make some calculation. You can do very, very good calculation, but the first operation is wrong. Then, although everything else is good, then the result is bad. And this is the problem in Kami's life, because they're very expert in doing so many things, amazing machines, everything, but they think we are the body. The first operation is wrong. Everything is wrong. But as soon as we know we're not the body and we act, then we can make buildings, everything. We can do exactly what they do, but we've got the proper base. So the base, the book is the basis, and we got all information from the books. A few days ago, they announced on the news showing some pictures of a spaceship that went on the surface of Mars. We know it's not true. They big cheaters. The planets have there's different distances, and Mars is very, very far away. It's actually a lot of scientists lie to people. They need money. They've discovered a lot of things, but they have nothing else now to discover. They invented the cars, but we don't have a car, we can walk. I speak with a microphone, but if I have no microphone, I can still speak. It's not something that I really need. I can go on without a microphone. They do have nice technology, and then we can use it, but we don't have it, we can still talk. They invented some planes. Okay, we don't have planes. Then we don't need to go to Hawaii, or we don't need to go on vacation in Tahiti or whatever. We can still do something. Or everything they've invented is something that is not really needed. But what we need, nobody wants to get old. And nobody wants to get sick. And nobody wants to die. And these are the real problems. And this is why we approach a spiritual master. He teaches us how not to take birth again, so we don't need to get old again, and we don't need to get sick again, and we don't need to die again. This is the real reason why we approach Guru. And Prabhupada teaches in a practical way. It's not just dry philosophy. He taught us how to play music, how to play mridanga, kartals, how to cook, how to dress, how to speak to people, how to do so many things. This is why we're so merciful to Srila Prabhupada. It's not just a sentimental relationship. We appreciate everything Prabhupada did. We change completely all our lives because we have a change of consciousness. Hare Krishna. So there's still a lot to read on Swamiji Invites the Hippies. Thank you for listening. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki jai. Shri Gaunta ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Ladu and Mayapur Dham ki jai. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.